So look, we've all been there. You've spent days, maybe even weeks, trying to figure out why your web application feels incredibly slow, why it's janky on screen readers, or why it's just weirdly hard to style. You're writing these massive JavaScript workarounds, you're constantly fighting your CSS framework, and you're sitting there wondering why the whole thing still just feels broken. Well, the answer is almost always sitting right there in the one language that developers seem to love to ignore. Yep, HTML. We really need to have a serious debate today about the semantic architecture of senior HTML development. Because the reality is, abandoning HTML way too early is the root cause of the most frustrating, yet entirely avoidable mistakes in modern web development.
I mean, just look at this quote. Most people learn HTML for like a week, decide they know it, and never come back. It's an incredibly accurate assumption in our industry, isn't it? As developers, we have this collective habit of treating HTML as just basic boilerplate. You know, a beginner language you blast through before getting to the real programming, like React or Angular. But this is exactly where our debate starts. HTML is not just dumb markup. It is a foundational architecture layer. When you treat it like just a bunch of empty boxes to hold your JavaScript, you are actively degrading the quality of your entire application.
15. That is a crazy number. Out of over 100 powerful, highly specific HTML elements available to us right now, the average developer leans on a mere 15 basic tags. We're talking your divs, your spans, paragraphs, some headers, links, and inputs. And that's basically it. Meanwhile, tags like nav, dialogue, time, figure, article, these are elements that tell the browser exactly what the content is without you having to write a single line of CSS or JavaScript, and they are completely ignored. It's seriously frustrating when you realize just how much built-in power we are literally just leaving on the table.
Section 1. The browser reads HTML first.
Okay, so here's the thing. Everything starts with the HTML. If that underlying blueprint is bad, every single thing downstream pays the price. When you rely entirely on what we call div soup, you strip away all semantic meaning. You are literally forcing the browser to guess your intentions. And because the browser doesn't actually know what anything is supposed to be, your CSS becomes an absolute fight. Your JavaScript ends up having to patch things that natively shouldn't need patching at all. And ironically, your page loads slower. Why? Because the browser is doing extra computational work just to figure out what on earth you actually meant to build.
Section 2. Accessibility and legal risks.
Look, accessibility isn't just some shiny feature you sprint for at the end of Q3 to check a box. It is the fundamental way the web is intended to function for everyone. Visually, sure, to a mouse user, a heavily styled div and a true semantic button might look completely identical. But structurally, totally different story. That fake div button literally locks out users who rely on keyboard navigation. They can't tab to it, they can't press enter to activate it. You have completely shut them out of your application just because you chose a generic box instead of the element specifically engineered to be interactive.
And skipping basic HTML features like using proper buttons or adding form labels or including image alt text, it isn't just lazy coding. It introduces direct legal and financial liability. Google and Microsoft pay their engineers serious money to get this right because WCAG compliance is a legal requirement in several countries. Companies face very real lawsuits and massive settlements over inaccessible websites. If your image has no alt attribute, a screen reader just reads out the messy, confusing file name. If your form has no labels, a visually impaired user has literally no idea what they're filling out. It's a broken experience.
Section 3. Direct SEO impact.
Now, even if you somehow bypass the legal risks, you cannot bypass Google. Search engine crawlers absolutely do not care about your elegant JavaScript framework. Let's take two sites with identical visual content. Site A uses proper semantic HTML, logical H1 through H3 tags, nav blocks, structured data markup. Site B, it's just divs all the way down. The result is absolute. Site A ranks, Site B doesn't. When you fail to use structured markup, which, by the way, you write in HTML, you lose out on rich results in search. I'm talking about star ratings, event dates, product prices. You are literally hiding your business from the internet because you didn't want to use the right tags.
Section 4. Hidden performance attributes.
We spend so much time obsessing over shaving kilobytes off our JavaScript bundle sizes, but massive performance gains are sitting right there in your HTML attributes, requiring absolutely 0 lines of JavaScript. Just adding loading equals lazy to your images defers them until the user actually scrolls down to them. Putting fetch priority equals high on your hero image, that tells the browser to load it immediately, which directly improves your largest contentful paint score. And defer and async? Honestly, it's baffling how rarely they are used correctly. Half the time, a slow, blocked site happens simply because a developer pasted a script tag in the wrong place without an async or defer attribute.
And then, of course, we have forms. If you use type equals email, you get built-in validation and the specific email keyboard on mobile devices completely natively. If you fail to use attributes like autocomplete equals new password, browsers will either refuse to autofill entirely or they'll fill in the wrong data. So what happens then? Well, users get frustrated, they drop off, and your conversion rates absolutely tank. All because of missing HTML attributes that handle this perfectly without you ever needing to write external scripts. Section 5. The Senior Interview Test.
All of these factors actually culminate when companies interview for senior front-end roles. Diving deep into HTML is actually the fastest litmus test they use to identify true senior engineers. An interviewer hands over a web page and asks, "So, what's wrong with this HTML?" The junior developer takes a look and says, "Nothing, the page renders fine." But the senior developer looks at that exact same page and immediately sees the structural red flags. 3 separate H1 tags confusing the crawler, anchor tags acting as buttons completely breaking keyboard navigation, a form missing labels, and images missing alt text. The visual output is exactly the same, but the structural quality is completely different. And that deep understanding of the web's foundation, that is exactly what companies pay top dollar for.
Let's just be honest for a second. HTML is not a beginner language. It is simply the language most developers stopped learning way too early. They learned it for a week, assumed they knew it all, and just moved on. But the ceiling is incredibly high. Semantics, accessibility, SEO, performance, metadata, these are advanced architectural concerns and most developers just never get there. But the developers who do, they write code that reaches more people, ranks significantly better, loads faster, and frankly just needs a lot less JavaScript to function.
So I want you to think about this. Look at your own code base right now. Look at your components. Are you actually writing senior code, structuring applications the exact way the browser is begging you to? Or did you stop learning HTML too early? Keep that in mind the next time you reach for a div.